This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And we are back for another edition of the Primetime Podcast right here on Most Valuable Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything college football and college basketball. And Brandon, before we get into everything, what a games that we had, or what a few games we had this past weekend. Tennessee, Purdue was insane. Duke, Michigan State. There were people that were saying that we got robbed of a great national championship between those two teams because they met in the Elite Eight. And then you got Auburn, who their star player goes down. And then they rally behind the emotion of losing him to beat Kentucky. A great weekend here for the tournament, Sweet 16 Elite Eight.
Well, this is what we're going to get all the time, and it has not disappointed. This has been another great March Madness, and it's not over yet. There's been so much emotion. There's been so many storylines. I think one of the best is Auburn, with Chumo Kiki going down in the game against, who was it that they were playing? North Carolina. He goes down. His team rallies. They didn't need to do much rallying because North Carolina fell asleep on him. Mm-hmm. But I just loved their intensity that they played with against Kentucky. They never quit in that game. Kentucky proved to be a very, very good team, as they always are. John Calipari coached team, and now they're for life. I think that Auburn has already overcome so many great things, beating number one North Carolina in their region, losing their number one player, beating number two Kentucky. And now you're going up against Virginia, a team that a lot of people would say should not be there because the Purdue Boilermakers had every opportunity to close it. I'm just saying, the Purdue Boilermakers specifically in that game had every opportunity to close it out. They were not able to close the window on them. You look at the game against Oregon. Oregon wasn't able to close the door on Virginia. But Virginia, another nice storyline from last year, going out against the number 16 team that had never happened ever, happens to Virginia. They're back in the Final Four. Then you look at Texas Tech. They're in the Final Four. Michigan State in the Final Four for the first time since, what was it, 2014? Or something like that?
2014, 2015, I think.
Or maybe it was 2016. I can't remember. It was just a couple of years ago, but 2015 I think may have been when they lost to Middle Tennessee. But this is really fun. This is really exciting. It's been a great ride. We've seen just some awesome basketball, and like I said, we are not done yet. Yeah, Virginia,
to me, I'll be honest, I know people are going to say, well, they won the game, that's all that matters. You're right. But should have lost to Oregon, then should have lost to Purdue. Got a little bit lucky in those games, but I can't wait for the Final Four this Saturday, National Championship next Monday. That's why we're going to be coming at you a little bit later in the week next week because of that championship game. We won't be recording on Monday. We'll be recording on Wednesday of that week. But Brandon, before we get into what we're going to get into, make sure to check out patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. That's how you help support us. We've got new tiers on the way. They should be up by the time you're looking at this. Go over to patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. Redid our goals, redid our rewards to give you everything that you want for supporting us. Helping you help us, we're going to give back to you and give you something for helping us and making sure that we can give you everything that we want to each and every day. But Brandon, jam-packed show. It's just the versus show. We're going to have some showdowns. We're going to take a look at Jarrett Culver versus Cam Reddish. One prospect really on the rise, the other one kind of sliding down draft boards. We're going to take a look at those two guys today. Then we're going to move over into the world of football and kind of predict where the top 5 quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, and Will Grier, which teams they will be landing to, and kind of some NFL draft discussion. Then we're going to come back into the college basketball sphere to discuss 2 second-round guards, and Cassius Winston and Carsen Edwards, and kind of looking at them. Cassius Winston obviously going to the Final Four. Carsen Edwards is not. Jarrett Culver also going to the Final Four. Cam Reddish is not. So, Brandon, let's start with that first one, though. Cam Reddish, Jarrett Culver. Jarrett Culver is, if you look at draft boards, he is just skyrocketing since his play in March. And, of course, everyone's on the national stage now, so, of course, more eyes are going to be on you. But Culver is moving up draft boards. You've got Cam Reddish moving down draft boards. I want to ask you, let's start with Jarrett Culver because he's the riser. What have you seen this year and from Culver in March that makes you either like or not like him, depending on where you are with JC?
Well, I think that when you look at the way that he has played in the tournament, you look a little bit at... I look, first of all, how he's been shooting from the floor. So in his first game against Northern Kentucky, almost 60% from the field. That's pretty good. But then it goes down against Buffalo to 35%, shoots back up against Michigan to 47%, and then way down against Gonzaga to 26%. So I think that one of the things when he's at the next level, it's going to be how good is his mid-range jumper? How good is he, on the floor inside of three? Because when you look at his threes, again, in those 4 games, 3 out of 5, 1 out of 4, 0 out of 5, and 2 out of 8. So he hasn't established himself yet as a great three-point shooter. How is he going to be as a mid-range jump shooter? That's, I think, where a lot of people are going to wonder about him. He's a fantastic ball handler. I think he's great as a ball handler, someone who can certainly move with the basketball up and down the floor and can, shake and bake really well. But then if he gets a good shake and bake, is he going to be able to knock down and drain that clutch shot? That's going to be, I think, a question for me in what certainly a lot of teams will look at next level NBA. Also, I think he's a pretty darn good defender. I wouldn't say probably the elite defender at the next level, but he's certainly a guy who's been known for his defense as well. But my main concern on that, Ricky, is he's got to get more consistent in terms of his mid-range jump shot.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, the thing that I want to go off of the defense because you mentioned that's the thing that I think kind of separates these two in a sense, because both of these, it's funny to me that what we thought Cam Reddish would be, Jarrett Culver is.
Yeah.
Where Cam Reddish, we thought he would be a guy that, you know what? He's going to he can play off ball. He's going to shoot the three. He can drive to the basket, and he can play defense, which Cam Reddish can do, but we'll get into him in a little bit because he's kind of an enigma, I would say, for this draft class. But Jarrett Culver, watching his film, he's a guy that has the shooting stroke. I mean, the 70% from the line, I would like that to go up a little bit. He's a guy that averages about 5-6 foul shots a game, only makes about 3 to 4 of those. So you'd want that to go up. But the thing is, he also rebounds the ball very well. He averages about 6 of those a game. And like I said, I know Dave and I kind of had this discussion on the fast break. I feel like Jarrett Culver's a guy that can play off ball well for a team. He's not going to be a guy that, hey, I got to have the ball in my hands. Can he have the ball in his hands? Absolutely. But he's a guy, he can play off of it in pick and roll. Hey, I'm going to set a pick. All right, now slide to the basket. You hit him driving. He can finish at the hoop. He can also shoot from the outside. And he has that defensive skill. Like you said, is he an elite defender? I wouldn't say elite. I would say a pretty damn good defender at the college level right now. And I mean, you look at the stats between them, and this is, of course, per 36 stats that I'm looking at, but you look at points per game, Culver's got more, 21 to 16. Rebounds per game, 7 to 4.5. Culver has more assists than Cam Reddish. Reddish has technically more blocks and steals, and Culver has less turnovers and fouls. But the thing to me is the true shooting, where Culver has a better true shooting percentage. He has a better efficient field goal percentage, and he has a better free throw rate than Cam Reddish. What do you think it is with Cam Reddish that... Because to me, I almost feel like we're in the Nasir Little boat with Cam Reddish. Not that he's going to be a bust at the next level, but I often wonder with Cam Reddish, if you were on a different team and not with Zion and RJ, would it be different? Because Culver does not have to play with RJ and Zion. Cam Reddish does.
Ricky, in our first big board that we did, I think you and I, rightfully so at the time,
dookies.
it was 1, 2, 3. And at the time, we joked, but I think we were serious of, come the end of the year, we're probably going to be doing this same thing for 1, 2, 3. It's just a matter of who's going to be 2, who's going to be 3. And now it's gotten to the point where Ja Morant put himself into that category. Jarrett Culver has tried to put himself into that category. I tried to lean on Brandon Clark to maybe put himself into that category as well. But I asked the same question as you just did. Would Cam Reddish be any different if he was on a team not labeled the Duke Blue Devils? And my thought would be, well, yeah, he would have to be. Cam's been able to, and I've said it a number of times this year, where he's just disappeared. He's disappeared. He's gone off into the corner, hasn't been called upon. And for Duke, to Cam's displeasure, I think, and what's worked against him is that's been just fine, because they've still won games without him. They've still won games with him not playing at the top of his games. They've still won games with R.J. Barrett not playing at the top of his games, because they have a guy called Zion Williamson. Well, they did. It's over now. But I think that Cam Reddish is still going to be a good player at the next level. You know, he's a strong forward type. He can knock down shots from distance. He has shown that he can do that when he's given the opportunity. He can defend both big and small. That's going to be something that's going to be working for him. He can play the 3. He can play the 4. You know, he's not locked into having to do one of those things. I guess I also look at a guy who is at 6'8" with a 7'1" wingspan. There's a lot of athletic ability there. I mean, he is a true athlete. He can space the floor. But for me, what are we, you know, in a sense, you're asking, what are we going to see out of the real Cam Reddish at the next level? What are we going to see out of the real Cam Reddish where, yes, there's other players on your team, but guess what? Now you're being put into a different situation where maybe you are being called upon to be more of the man. Are you able to shoulder that load? And then if you do, what's it going to look like? Because we saw what it looked like with Cam Reddish as the number 3, the clear number 3, and it was okay. And a lot of people would probably say it was good for the number 3. Does that excite you for him to be possibly a number 1 or a number 2? Or does it make you nervous to have him be a number 1, number 2, even with all of his athletic ability, even with all the skills and the positions that he can play? What are you more looking for and leaning towards, Ricky? Are you leaning towards more of, I'm nervous because I'm not sure, or I'm excited because I think he could?
I think the thing with Cam Reddish is that maybe, and this is me just throwing the question out there, because maybe at the beginning of the year, we expected Zion, RJ, and Cam to be finished products at the end of first year. And then we saw it. Like, Zion played a game. Well, let's be honest. Zion played an exhibition game, and everyone's like, he could be in the NBA right now. Like, he is, to me, and I've said it before on the Fast Break, I will say it here. I have been on record numerous times saying Zion Williamson will be the next best player in the NBA after LeBron James is long gone. Like, that to me is Zion Williamson. His track is becoming the next number 1 player in the NBA. That's what I see for him. Like, he played an exhibition game where you're like, oh, he could be in the NBA. RJ Barrett throughout the entire year, and now at the end, we see and he go, okay, he can be in the NBA. But we look at Cam Reddish, and I bring up Nasir Little because we've talked about this way with Nasir all year, and I feel like Nasir is on a more dramatic note than Cam Reddish because of how just awful he's been all year unless they play Iona. But that's like a point that Sean makes. Like, oh, when Nasir Little plays weaker opponents, he plays well. When he plays tough opponents, he plays like poo-poo. But with Cam Reddish, I feel like maybe the answer is he's not a finished product yet. Like, is it okay? And the answer to me is yes, because it's a draft and it's 1 year of college. Like, you're not expecting every single player isn't going to be, yes, I am ready to contribute 100% to an NBA team my first year. Not everyone's going to be LeBron James. They can step in as an 18-year-old kid and fend for themselves in the NBA. And I just feel like maybe Cam Reddish is more of a project or more of a player that, hey, we're going to draft you because we see what the ceiling is for Cam Reddish, and we feel like we can get the most out of him. However, the biggest question, I think this is why people are so unsure about Cam Reddish. I think it was in this article that I'm reading from NBC Sports. The question is, where's his floor? Like, where's the starting point for Cam Reddish? Like most prospects, okay, this is what I'm getting at his very least. Like, this is what I know he'll be at the very least. The potential, this is what, like, the most he could grow into. But because I think we're unsure about where that floor is, that's why we're so unsure about him in the top 3 or even the top 5 of the NBA draft.
Well, do you think we've seen his floor? Do you think we saw it this year at Duke? I mean,
I would like to say no.
We didn't see his ceiling.
Yeah, no,
for sure. We didn't see his ceiling. We know that. I guess also too is any team that takes him, and I'm certainly not trying to sound doom or gloom at all, and this probably won't come off as that, but it's more of he's not a safe pick. Like whoever picks Zion for the sake of Chicago, just the Bulls should just be able to do it.
I tweeted today, Mike 2K, one of our loyal listeners was like, someone tweeted out, someone who does a Bulls podcast was like, did the first sim of April and the Bulls were the #1 pick? I'm telling you, if the Bulls get the first pick May 8th or May 14th, I'm going on NBAshop.com.
Yes,
I'm dropping money on a custom Zion jersey, and then I'm going to be mad because the Bulls will probably trade the pick to piss me off. I'll waste all that money on a custom Zion Williamson #1 Bulls jersey, which people might get mad at because #1 is Derrick Rose's number, but I'm still going to do it because Zion was 1 in college, and he's going to be #1 in my heart now. But I will May 14th buy that jersey if we get the #1 pick, but that's an aside note. Go ahead.
With Cam Reddish, I love your idea, and you've been saying that for a while, so I know you're not kidding. With Cam Reddish, though, it's no safe. He's not a safe pick.
No.
He's not a safe pick. Zion Williamson is a safe pick. R.J. Barrett is a pretty safe pick that you're going to get plenty of scoring. He's going to come with everything that we saw him do at Duke plus. With Cam Reddish, it's there. You talked about it, Ricky. There's things there to like, and I mentioned some too, but there is more question marks surrounding what more can he do and when will we see it. That's the biggest thing with Cam Reddish is that. That's why I go back to your #1 question is if he was not with the Duke Blue Devils. I think, of course, Ja Morant's a better player, but if he was the player on Murray State, would people be talking more about and Ja Morant was over on Duke, then are we less about Ja Morant, even though he's still a great player, and more on, Cam Reddish, because look he's done so much for his team because he's the only one. I mean, clearly, when Murray State played, Florida State? They just got manhandled in the tournament. Ja Morant still put up tons of stats and was phenomenal from 3. You could just tell an outstanding ball handler, had it together. It was just a pretty good talent. But no one else on Murray State did anything. Would that have been what we talked about with Cam Reddish if he was the one on Murray State? Or would he just be, he's pretty good? What would have been the significance of him being the guy on another college team, and how would that have helped him? Or would that have possibly hurt him because we would have seen, okay, maybe he's He's a good player, but maybe he's going to come after number 10 in the draft. I know I'm maybe being crazy, but, could it have been changed really positively or possibly more negatively?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm looking at the teams that offered him, and he had 17 offers coming out. Duke was the one he was going to go to. Duke was the only school he visited.
When Duke offers you for basketball, you're pretty much gone.
But here were the 17 offers for Cam Reddish. Duke, Alabama, Arizona, Auburn, UConn, Kansas, Kentucky, Maryland, Miami, Penn State, Pittsburgh, Seton Hall, Syracuse, UCLA, USC, Villanova, Virginia, Harvard, and UNC. Look at a team like Villanova. What if he was... Because let's be honest, if he went to Villanova, yes, they had their kind of senior guys there. He would have been the guy for Villanova. Like, yeah, Pascal is good.
And
but
Booth. Booth was another guy.
But they're not, like, if Cam Reddish is coming to town, Cam Reddish is the guy Villanova's excited for. Like, what would he have done in Villanova? Good team, well-coached team, but in an easier conference in the Big East, and being the number one on that team. Like, I still go back, and my big thing is whenever we have the discussion on the Fast Break about Cam Reddish, Sean's a guy where Sean is completely negative about Cam Reddish, and rightfully so. Like, Cam Reddish has done nothing this year besides a shot against Florida State when Zion left the game with an injury that has given you any, like, if you're a Cam supporter, he has given you no ammo this year except for maybe that shot. And to me, I wonder, and I know people say it's a crutch or, oh, it's an excuse. I wonder if playing next to RJ or on the same team with Zion, too many mouths to feed. Where, maybe it's like Nasir Little in a sense. I'm going to bring that into it again, where people are like, oh, look at his high school tape. But then his high school usage, UNC used him in a completely different situation. I wonder if Cam Reddish would have been the same way, and we're never going to get that answer. However, the thing we got with Jarrett Culver to bring him back into this discussion was he was a guy last year who him and Zaire Smith were paired up. Zaire went to the NBA, Jarrett Culver stayed. And Jarrett Culver is not a freshman. He's a guy that's now been in college for 2 years. Is that another kind of little reason of maybe why Jarrett Culver... Because last year, like even Dave said, Dave's like, if Jarrett Culver would have came out, I wouldn't have even known who he was, and he wouldn't have been high on my draft boards. But he stays. He has a really good year this year. And now he's top 5, maybe now even rising into top 3 discussion. Like, we had a discussion on the Fast Break weeks ago about who should be number 2, Ja or RJ. And I know there's still people that think RJ should be 2, but to me it's pretty clear cut. Zion's 1 and Ja is 2 when you're talking big board.
I'd agree with you.
Now, I would say Jarrett Culver is kind of playing himself into the discussion of, like, at first you're asking, is it RJ or Ja at 2? Now you can ask, is it RJ or Jarrett at 3 if you're putting together a big board?
Well, I think, too, though, is that, and again, I know this is a smaller sample size, but when you look at this tournament and you look at what Texas Tech just did to Michigan,
well, and that's the thing. How much stock do you put in a couple games in March?
I'm putting a decent amount of stock into it because the big-time players are going to show up and play in the big-time moments.
Yeah.
And Jarrett Culver is part of that reason that Texas Tech defense was so dominant against Michigan, a team that I think a lot of people thought was going to roll right into the Final Four, at least to the Final Four again, this year. And he was part of that defense. Pair that with his scoring, pair that with his ball handling ability, pair that with, just the fact that he's a pretty darn good talent. That's why he's moving up draft boards, is because while he's not going to be shooting lights out, and be this 30 points per game type of guy, he brings a little bit in every single area. And I think that's why he's been slowly rising. Whereas a guy like Cam Reddish, who a lot of people I think expected and had bigger expectations for him is slowly falling.
Because he's a part of the Duke 3.
That's where we may not know until he gets to we aren't going to know until he gets to the next level what Cam Reddish, this is the question. We're not going to, it's not a question, it's more of a statement.
Yeah.
We're not going to know who Cam Reddish is until he gets to the next level. We're not going to know the real Cam Reddish until the next level, because what we saw, I would like to believe that's not the real Cam Reddish. That's not the best that you're going to get from him.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing I kind of think too, and this is going back to Cam, and I'm not saying this will happen to Cam. I'm not even saying I wish this happens to Cam, but like you look at it, and I'm going to reference back to the last time in my life I saw a collection of players come together and kind of take college basketball by storm was when I was like, and of course for me it was looking back on it because I was like 2 and 3 when it happened, but like even when I was 5 or 6, it's hard not to know who the Fab Five are, especially when you get into college basketball and you start looking at Chris Webber and Jalen Rose in the NBA as you're watching that as a young kid. But like that's the last time I felt like a collection of just players were like, hey, we're going to go to this one school and we're going to dominate. RJ, Zion, and Cam are in that same discussion. But if you look at it, out of all the Fab Five, Chris Webber, he had a pretty long NBA career, drafted in 93, played all the way until 2008. Then you have Jalen Rose, drafted in 94, played all the way until 2007. Juwan Howard, drafted in 94, played actually all the way until 2013, and is now an assistant coach in the league. But then you have like the other guys on that team, which it was Jimmy King was one, drafted in 95. By 97, he was down in the D League. Then you look at the other one, Ray Jackson, he went undrafted and didn't even play in the NBA. So it's like, I'm not saying Cam Reddish is going to be like Ray Jackson where he didn't play. I'm not even saying Cam Reddish is going to be like Jimmy King where, hey, he gets drafted and then kind of slides out because Jimmy King was a second-round pick. No way Cam Reddish is going to be a second-round pick because he's going, like Cam Reddish to me is either going to be a top 5 pick or just outside the top 5. When we get to the June's draft, I almost said April, but I'm on NBA kind of scheduling there, or NFL scheduling there. I don't. Cam to me, the one word, if you said, Ricky, describe Cam Reddish in one word, the word I would use is enigma.
Yeah.
Because it's the biggest question that nobody seems to have an answer to. And there's some people out there that if you're a like Cam Reddish supporter, you're going to say he's going to be the biggest steal in the draft because that's what you feel. But then there's going to be the other side of it, which Sean Anderson is on, where kind of like on the other side, where if you take this guy too high, we might be looking at him as not like a bust to where he's out of the league, but like looking back where it's like, man, maybe Cam wasn't worth that top 3 pick. Maybe we should have taken someone else in that draft. And I'm going to go back to the question of the biggest reason why is I don't think we can for sure pinpoint where his floor is because of the struggles that he's had this year at Duke.
What do you mean, floor or do you mean ceiling?
Floor. Because I think everyone knows like the ceiling of what he can be, what we want him to be. It's just we don't know what we're going to get. Like
we've seen some bad
level.
games from him. I'm hoping that's the floor.
No. And that's it. By floor, I don't mean what he steps into the league as. What I mean by floor is at the very least progression-wise. Okay, this is what he's going to be. This is what he's going to develop into at the very least. That's what I mean by floor. Whereas ceiling is he reaches his full potential and he gets all the way to the top of his growth.
I know what they mean.
Yeah.
I just was checking to see if you were using it correctly.
I also wanted to clarify for them too, where we don't know the least of like his growth. We don't know where that least is. We don't know where it is. Is it a little bit better than he is? Is it a lot better than he is right now? And I think that's why he's falling down draft boards like he is, because nobody's like, we know what he could probably be at his best, but what could he be if he hits like his least amount of growth? And that's the big question. Whereas Jarrett Culver, I think a lot of people are saying, okay, at the least he could be this for us, and it's for sure solidified, and it's not as big of a question as Cam Reddish.
One of my final question for you, Ricky, is it gets to the NBA draft. Do you think that he's potentially out of the top 5, or do you think that Cam Reddish is still a top 5 guy that's taken?
I think,
and what team do you think takes him, and why?
I think he's still a top 5 guy. Another thing we haven't talked about that isn't big, but we won't get the answer until the combine, is Dave has brought this up before. We need to see measurements, because right now, wherever you look, Jarrett Culver is listed as 6'6", which kind of puts you more in a 2-guard range. But hey, if he gets to the combine and gets slotted at 6'8", all right, now he's a 3. Then things become more interesting, because if he's grown and he's at least 6'8", or even maybe 6'7", but more that 6'8", you could then make the discussion for, all right, Jarrett Culver could now be a 3 instead of just a 2, because that would put him at the same height as Cam Reddish. I don't think Cam Reddish falls out of the top 5. And the reason why I say that is, if we look at the order right now as we are recording it, the reason why I say he doesn't fall out of the top 5, because if everything stays chalk as it is right now, Zion would go to the Knicks at 1. Ja would go to the Suns at number 2. Cleveland would take R.J. Barrett, because they have Colin Sexton, but they need a guy that has that Mamba mentality, as we've talked about with R.J. Barrett so many times. The Bulls, this is where you ask, this is the question we're asking right now is what the Bulls could face if everything stays chalk. Who do we go with, Cam Reddish or Jarrett Culver? I may be leaning towards Culver for the Bulls, which then means if the Hawks are at 5, I would go Cam Reddish with 5 or 6, because the Hawks have both of those right now. But yeah, I feel like if it's right now, Cam Reddish would be at least the 4th or 5th pick, and I don't think he falls out of the top 5. The only way he falls out of the top 5 in my mind is if there's a team, depending on how the lottery shakes up, if there's a team that jumps into the top 4 that maybe could go with a point guard instead. I'm trying to sim it right now to see if there's a team that may happen to. Give me a couple sims, because Tankathon is being a little weird. But one I'll throw out there is the Pelicans. If the Pelicans get the 4th pick, maybe they go with a Kobe White instead of a Cam Reddish.
I do love him.
But
he's great.
That's the only question. If a team through the process likes a guy like Brandon Clark, likes a guy like Kobe White better than Cam Reddish, better than the 3 position, and wants to go with something else, that's the only way to me he falls out of the top 5. But if we're looking top 5 right now in a draft situation, Knicks go Zion, Suns go Ja, Cavs go RJ, Bulls I would lean towards Jarrett Culver, and then the Hawks I would go with Cam Reddish. Is there anything else you think we didn't mention when it comes to Jarrett Culver or Cam Reddish? I kind of feel like Jarrett Culver, because I feel like we spent a ton of time talking about Cam Reddish.
Yeah, but good, Jarrett, good guy, guy, fan of the show. I'm kidding.
Fan of the show.
I'm sure he is. But there was
Cam's the biggest enigma.
There was more to talk about with Cam Reddish, because I think that, and I think it's because he seemed to be so solidified at the beginning of the season, and throughout I think he got lost in the shuffle of the big 3, and he ended up being the 3rd out of the 3. And that's where we're at right now, with him falling a little bit, maybe not a lot, but a little bit. And I think people's energy on him has come down from what it once was. I know certainly mine was, but I thought this was the most respectful I've talked about Cam in some time.
Yeah, well, I know I'm usually on the fast break. It's Sean giving all the, it sounds like hate, the Cam Reddish way, but Sean is just very critical of Cam Reddish. I hope the best for Cam Reddish because I really like him as a player. And really, he was the one out of the three that I was kind of pulling for since the start. But you got to love Zion. But I mean, like between RJ and Cam. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. First off, the simple no-brainer question. Whose side are you on, Culver or Reddish? And then what do you think about each? And really, when it comes to Cam, what are your thoughts with that whole Pandora's boxes? What do you think his floor is? Do you think he'll reach his ceiling? Do you think he's a top 5? Do you think he's still a top 3? Should he fall out of the top 5? Let us know what you guys think down below. But Brandon, let's move on into our next topic, and we're kind of shifting over to the football field as we are officially on draft watch. 25 days until the NFL draft as we sit here April 1st. That's what I love.
Happy April Fools!
We are finally in April. It is now NFL draft time. Like, it's been draft time. Like, let's be honest, we've been talking draft. But for the most part, we are now in the final stretch before we get to Nashville on April 26th. And Brandon, the big thing we're going to talk about here is we're going to take a look at all the top 5 quarterbacks. We've got Kyler Murray. We've got Dwayne Haskins. You've got Drew Lock. You've got Daniel Jones. And we've got Will Grier. Where are these guys going to be drafted? Because nobody knows. Could be the Cardinals. Could be the Giants. Could be the Dolphins. People could be trading up. People could be trading down. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at each prospect one after another and kind of give our thoughts about what teams could look at him, what kind of the landscape is right now, and then our thoughts of who he gets drafted with. We're going to go right down the rankings, and if you look at, and I'm going right down the rankings according to tankathon.com, and for quarterbacks, they've got Kyler Murray listed as the numero uno quarterback on their list. So, Brandon, the first thing I'm going to ask you before we get into the prediction, because we're going to talk about each guy, is what are your thoughts about Murray, his draft stock, and kind of the draft landscape right now with him as we move into the month of April?
So I just think it's so interesting because truly not too long ago, we weren't even counting on Kyler Murray to be in this draft.
Well, he
was going to be a baseball
player.
He was going to be a baseball player.
I remember Dave told me, he's like, well, Kyler Murray could go in the first round. I'm like, no way he skips out on baseball. I was wrong. But let's be honest, he could be drafted by a team, not play year one, and go, hey, I'm going to go back to baseball. Because he seemed very non-committal.
And baseball would gladly take him back.
Yeah. Well, the A's would gladly take him back.
Yeah. And as many of our viewers and listeners know, I really like Kyler Murray. I think he's a fun and exciting talent. I think that if he gets paired with the right coach, and don't try and tell me that, if you're a get paired with the right coach kind of guy in the right system, then you're just a system quarterback. A lot of people have been saying that about Tom Brady for years. Tom Brady just keeps winning Super Bowls. He don't care. It's one of those things where if you find the right situation, you can be extremely successful. It's just like in any job. You find the right situation, you can be still extremely successful. You're in a situation that's crap, even as hard as you try, it's not going to work out. But I look at Kyler Murray, and I think that you pair him up with Cliff Kingsbury, you pair him with an offensive guy with an offensive mind, it could be something really good. And I understand that Arizona drafted Josh Rosen last year and believed that was going to be their guy at, number 10? And Rosen believed, I should have been higher. This was a guy, Josh Rosen, that wasn't even sure if he was all that interested in football anymore. So I still will question is he all in on football? You look at the Arizona Cardinals, I understand that they were not a great team last year. They've tried to update some pieces on defense. Their offensive line has still not been touched too much. But I think that if you have Kyler Murray on that team, you're going to get a guy who, even if an offensive line's not great, his running ability and his escapability is going to make him a better suited quarterback for that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that he's going to be able to get the ball down the field better than what Josh Rosen was able to do. So if I'm the Arizona Cardinals, I'm drafting Kyler Murray as number 1.
Yeah,
you're not.
I'm on the opposite side of you. And the reason why is, first off, the Cliff Kingsbury love, you can't say it's a smokescreen because he basically showed his hand before he even knew he was going to be the Cardinals head coach. But the thing that I think about when it comes to the Cardinals is quarterback is not your biggest negative. It is not your biggest need. Like, if you draft Kyler Murray at number 1, great. Who's he going to throw the fucking ball to? Who's going to block for him? Nobody.
I can tell you first. I can give you an answer for the first one.
Larry Fitzgerald is not enough. Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk are not enough for him. Like, yes, he would be getting David Jones back.
Are you sure? Because the Giants were perfectly fine with saying, Eli, throw it to Odell every time. We'll win.
And where are they in the draft?
I understand, but
exactly.
What I'm saying is that you can be successful with a couple of guys on there. You can also be successful with some guys that don't have to be number 1 name guys and the biggest paid guys.
The point I'm making is the Cardinals are in a weird situation of, to me, there's obviously 3 choices that they have to make. Number 1, do you draft Kyler Murray because your head coach loves him and he'd fit that system? That's number 1. Number 2, do you help your defensive line out, which is a need for this team? That could be Joey Bosa. I know people are Nick Bosa. I've called him Joey the whole time, and you just got to correct me. Just keep saying that. Nick Bosa. I know you've got Chandler Jones there. I know you just signed Terrell Suggs, but let's be honest. Terrell Suggs is not going to be there forever.
He signed a 1-year contract?
Bingo. So Nick Bosa would still get to play and learn under them. Number 2, you could go with Quinnen Williams, number 1. And that's the second option. Do you go defense, Bosa and Williams? Because right now your defensive tackles are Darius Pillin and Corey Davis. Yeah, I would take I know they have Robert Condici on this team too, but I would take Quinnen Williams over either of the 2 guys that I just listed for a defensive tackle. And then there's number 3. Do you trade the pick? Do you try to coerce someone who really wants Kyler Murray to try to get yes, you would get a lower pick, but looking at this draft, I look at all the needs that NFL.com has listed for him. Offensive line. If you're still in the top 10, you could probably get Jonah Williams. That would help you out. Wide receiver, DK Metcalf would be there. He would help you out. Tight end, Hockenson, apparently on mock drafts, Hockenson is rising up into top 10 status. I don't see it personally. I don't see Noah Fant or Hockenson being top 10 guys.
Well, I don't know.
But I've been wrong before.
I don't know how Noah Fant isn't being talked about as the number 1 guy. That's the thing.
It's
that's more
athleticism over production. Hockenson had more of the production. Noah Fant is an athletic guy. I get that kind of.
Noah Fant has outstanding production. I guess I just don't understand where the disconnect is for people.
Hockenson had the better stats. Noah Fant is good, but stats, production, Hockenson's were better than Fant. But either way, you could get a tight end later in the draft if you truly wanted to. Don't think you need to get that in the first round. And then quarterback, Greedy Williams could be sitting there if you go. And I'm thinking about teams like the Raiders, the Giants, the Dolphins, the Redskins, that are the quarterback-needy teams that would be trading up for Kyler Murray. Am I saying they should trade the pick? No. If I am the Cardinals, I stand pat and go, you know what? We have Josh Rosen on this team. Josh Rosen can fit Kingsbury's situation. I go with Nick Bosa because I am going with a guy that then could be my pass rusher for the future, and I can get after other quarterbacks. And if I suck next year and I'm the number 1 pick next year, then Josh Rosen's out the door because I get Tua Tagovailoa. That's what I sit with. So Murray, that's the whole reason why I don't see him going to the Cardinals.
So, I saw it was a post the other day. It was Adam Schefter, and he had put something. I follow him. He, it does all the tracking of the NFL, as I'm sure you do too. You don't have an Instagram, but I follow him on Instagram, and
he's got Twitter.
One of his things was Nick Bosa, and the Cardinals were meeting with him, and he said, they're, a dynasty, not a dynasty. What was it? Maybe some sort of, the fate of team changing, whatever. Decision is coming soon. And I'm thinking franchise, altering. The only way that you alter this franchise and make them better, Nick Bosa is not going to get you 7 wins. It's not going to happen. Kyler Murray could get you 7 wins. Ricky, you say it all the time.
Yeah.
Quarterback is the number 1 most important position on the field, and you say it all.
Followed by pass rusher.
And you say it all. You've never said followed by pass rusher. I can quote you. You've never said that.
I've always said the 2 most important.
You've always said number 1 is quarterback.
Number 1 is quarterback, but
you've never followed with a number 2.
Right behind, and I am now, because I've said in the past that the 2 most important positions in football are a quarterback and somebody who can get after the quarterback. Those are the 2 things you need in this NFL. And the only thing with the Cardinals that I'm looking at is, could Kyler Murray help you in the long run? Yes. But the thing I also look at is this team is not the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns last year could take a stab at a Baker Mayfield number 1 because they had a second first-round pick to use. They had the Houston first-round pick to use in that first round. So, hey, let's go take a gamble. Let's take the guy that we want, because we have another first-round pick in this draft. The Cardinals do not have that. So what I'm saying is, if they take Kyler Murray and he doesn't hit and he's not a Baker Mayfield, that is then a mistake. And of course, this is drafting. Anything in the draft could be a mistake. It's not an exact science. But I look at it and I go, you just drafted a quarterback last year. Josh Rosen was only bad in my mind because he didn't have a real head coach. He didn't have an offensive head coach. He had a head coach that I didn't even think deserved the job when he got it. And you're expecting him to be great with what he was set up with last year? He was set up to fail last year.
I wasn't expecting him to be great. I was expecting him to be better than piss poor.
Well, and I mean, I put more of the blame. I think Josh Rosen was not set up for success in Arizona, and that played a lot into it.
I don't think he was mentally tough. I don't think that he was mentally tough, as part of it is all a mental game, and you've got to stop, you've got to get outside of your own head, and you've got to just go out there and play the game, and that's not something that Josh Rosen was able to do, and I just, unless he is taking 100-foot leap from last year to this year, Josh Rosen is not going to be anyone's quarterback of the future.
Here,
for any team.
I'm going to read this to you. If you're a quarterback and you were sacked 17 times in under 2.5 seconds, 17 sacks essentially before you can 5-step with a hitch, are you going to succeed in the NFL?
Probably most quarterbacks would not, but I think
that's how many times Josh Rosen was sacked in 2.5 seconds. So before he could even take 5 steps back, boom, he's getting met by somebody. Like, that's how bad the Cardinals' offensive line is. So, like, for me, I don't care if Kyler Murray's back there. Yeah, he can run. Okay, he's going to run and get caught. Like, I don't think we're going to see the same exact Kyler Murray that we saw in college. Look at Lamar Jackson. Did Lamar Jackson have the same type of runs in the NFL that he had in college? No, because the guys are bigger, faster, stronger.
Yeah, he was pretty phenomenal.
He was pretty elusive, but what was the whole thing with Lamar Jackson of he's got to stop relying on his feet and rely on his arm a little bit more. And then when he relied on his arm, oh, crap, that's his weakness, and the Chargers beat him.
But see, that's where Kyler Murray's different. No, that he's probably not
but we don't know that. We haven't seen him at the next level yet.
But this is different in terms of, we knew Lamar Jackson's strength coming into the NFL was going to be his running ability. He was a passer. He was a good passer in college. He was a great runner. We most likely expected him to be a great runner and rely on that a lot come the NFL, and then be a good passer. Kyler Murray was both. I think a really phenomenal passer and an outstanding runner. So if he runs a little bit too much and then they push him to pass, I'm taking the example of Lamar, he's going to be more comfortable passing and moving the football that way. I know that we don't want to make it all about Kyler Murray because there's more quarterbacks, but my final comment is the Arizona Cardinals, they would be doing themselves a favor by going with Kyler Murray at number 1 and trading away Josh Rosen to literally anyone.
Here's the thing I think, and this is if the Cardinals really want a quarterback. If you want to replace Josh Rosen, if I'm the Cardinals, I'd rather go Nick Bosa at 1 and take Will Grier with the second-round pick. That's what
Why Bosa?
Because
why Bosa?
To me,
why not Quinnen Williams?
Or Quinnen Williams.
Quinnen Nick.
Either or.
I don't understand
Either or.
See, if people were talking more Quinnen Williams, I'd be a little bit more.
I like the pass.
Him. I'm not sure about.
I say Nick Bosa because I like the pass rush on the end. But if you said Quinnen Williams, I'd say yeah, sure, do that also. And if you really want a quarterback, try to get Will Grier right at the beginning of the second round because I like Will Grier. You're a big supporter of him. I don't think he's going to be bad. He's just going to need more time to develop. When it comes to, since you said Cardinals for Kyler Murray, I'm actually going to segue this into a different team that I think will be a prediction for one of these guys. I don't know who it is for you. It could be none of these guys, but it is for me. I'm going to say Kyler Murray will be, and Oakland A fans, cover your ears, he's going to be a Raider. He is going to be a Raider because of either one of 3 ways. Either the Raiders make a trade with the Cardinals go with somebody else, and then the Raiders trade up to 2 or 3, probably 2, to get him, or he falls all the way to 4. That's the unlikely one, and the Raiders take him. I think that there's only 2 places that Kyler Murray will go. It's either yours or mine. He either goes number 1 to the Cardinals, or he either goes to the Raiders via trade. I don't think he falls to 4, because if he gets to 3, the Jets are on the phone calling everyone. Jets are like, pick is open. We don't want Kyler Murray. You guys can have him. Somebody will then trade up for him at 3. But I think if the Cardinals don't pick him, and that's what I'm thinking, go with Nick Bosa. You met with him. He's going to give you a pass rush off the outside. John Lynch then goes, well, you know what? We could take Quinnen Williams here. But I've traded with teams before that wanted their quarterbacks. And if John Lynch feels like he can trade back and still get his guy, like when he traded with the Bears, expect the Raiders then to trade up, or the Giants to trade up, or somebody to trade up. I think it's going to be the Raiders. I think Kyler Murray, it's going to be the biggest story, too, of like he left the Oakland A's and now he's going to the Oakland Raiders. And then even worse, he's going to be in Oakland for a year and then he goes to Las Vegas. So Oakland gets to see him for 1 year and then he's in Las Vegas. But that's the thing I want to segue into. First off, are the Raiders even a team that you think any of these guys will go to? And number 2, do you think they will go with a quarterback because of Derek Carr, or could they chief it and say we're still going to take a guy and eventually treat Derek Carr like Alex Smith?
I don't think that they're sold on Derek Carr. I really don't.
Because they've met with Haskins and Murray.
We saw the number of times that Gruden and Derek Carr were not on the same page. They were not happy with each other. And I understand that that's going to happen throughout a season. A head coach and a quarterback are not going to be on the same page with each other. And it's okay. You can argue. You can fight. That's fine. It's the competitiveness in both of you. I'm okay with that. But I don't think that Derek Carr is John Gruden's guy. And John Gruden has always been known as the quarterback guy, right?
Yep.
He loves his quarterbacks. And
he also said at the Senior Bowl how he likes Kyler Murray.
I guess I just think that it's when, a new head coach comes in, he wants to evaluate everyone on his staff, and he'll either keep some, hold some over, or he's going to get rid of everybody and bring in his own guys. He's looking at the same thing for the rest of the talent. Are these guys good? Are we going in a different direction? Do I have to hold and go with them for 1 year? And in this case, yes, he did. But now he's in a position, it's his draft. people can say Mike Mayock's doing it. He's not. It's Gruden.
I will say Mike Mayock is probably helping out more than people might think, because John Gruden had a draft last year, and who did he take in the first round? Colton Miller. He took a guy that all of us went, who? Why is he in the first round? What is John Gruden doing? That's why Mike Mayock is here. Yes, it's Gruden's draft. Gruden's going to do it. But if Gruden has a thought like that, Mayock's going to step in and go, hey, John, let's think about this for a second.
I think that there's going to be a quarterback going that way to the Oakland Raiders. Because I'm not sure who it's going to be at this point, just because it hasn't happened yet. Well, in terms of at the top 3 picks before them, it hasn't happened. So and we're kind of predicting. That's why I ask if one of these guys is going to be one of yours that you picked there. It may end up being a Dwayne Haskins.
I want to read this though. Read some quotes from Mike Mayock, because it's funny you say Haskins, because the Raiders are working out both Murray and Haskins, of course, due diligence. You can always say that. But I've got 2 quotes here from CBS Sports from Mike Mayock. First one is, information is gold, and it always will be. We all know that John Gruden is a quarterback guy. John's going to evaluate every quarterback out there every single year. That's just who he is. Derek Carr is a franchise quarterback. I do believe that. We had Drew Lock at the Senior Bowl. He's a potential first-round pick, and we got to work with him for a week. We did our due diligence. We're going to see Kyler Murray, and we're going to see Dwayne Haskins in private workouts. We believe they're high-level quarterbacks, and that's due diligence. You'd better know how good these guys are. You'd better know what other teams are interested in, and whether or not you can improve your own position. That's part of what a head coach and GM do to evaluate every position on your football team. You owe it to your team to do the best job you can, to upgrade where you can. But I said this back at the NFL Combine, I don't think there are very many people who are better than Derek Carr. I read into that as 2 things. One, we got to say that Derek Carr's our guy. We can't back off. Like, John Gruden even said, Derek Carr, he's going to be our quarterback. I'm not going to address all the rumors. I could care less about the rumors. He threw for 4,100 yards, threw for almost 70% completions in a very dire, tough circumstance. So I have a lot of confidence in Carr, where what he can do. Antonio Brown and Tyrell Williams and Trent Brown coming in here will help our offensive line with a better defense. Yeah, I'm excited about Carr. Basically, John Gruden's answer. I just see that as, we're not going to shit talk our guy. We're going to shit talk Derek Carr, but I think the only quarterback that the Raiders might think about going with is Kyler Murray. That's the only one on the board that I think, like, Drew Lock was nice. I don't think he's top 4 pick worthy for the Raiders. I don't think Dwayne Haskins will have Gruden falling in love. I think Kyler Murray could. And if the Cardinals pass on him, the Gruden gears are going to be turning, because he's going to be like, oh, that's a Gruden grinder. I need Kyler Murray, man.
I don't know with the Raiders. I really don't. I mean, there could... Because
they're like the Cardinals. They don't need a quarterback.
I would... But
it's different because Derek Carr's a proven veteran. Josh Rosen is.
Here's also the thing: is that Derek Carr, a couple of
maybe we shouldn't play with that.
I like to though very much. It's like a fidget spinner, except it's not.
Dave does the same thing, by the way. He plays with the camera thing.
Oh, I mean,
so I got to keep it away with him.
I don't blame him. It's a fun little toy.
Like a toddler with toys. Just got to keep it away from you.
It's a fun little toy. Very scary when you drop it though. Derek Carr a couple of years ago, gosh, I think a lot of people, including me, thought, man, this guy is headed for an illustrious career. Then he got hurt. And then, not necessarily because of the injury, but just things working in Oakland haven't been the same since. And it's not all Derek Carr, but it gets to be the point where, is it time to try something else? And Oakland is priming themselves for a new look. They've done it. They've already done it. They've got a new look. They're a new look team. Khalil Mack is gone. He's with the Bears. They've given themselves a new look. We actually care again about our team.
Yeah.
The Oakland Raiders, they did that in this offseason. They got Antonio Brown. They now care about their team again. They get Tyrell Williams. He's fine. They get Trent Brown. He was good. I think he's probably well overpaid at this point, but I look at Derek Carr and I think, are you stale? They're trying to get a makeover. Are you part of the makeover team, or are they going to try and make you over with the new biggest, shiniest toy to put in and play with all the rest of them? That's where I kind of think Oakland could very well be going for a quarterback. And that's why I still think that a guy like, even if Kyler Murray's not there, a guy like Dwayne Haskins possibly could still be in play. They won't go with the Drew Lock. They won't go with a Daniel Jones. They won't go with any of those other guys. Because
Kyler or nobody.
Well, yeah, because if you go with any of those other three, you're basically getting Derek Carr, 2.0. Not to say that they're the same as Derek Carr, but you're getting the same types of things.
Well,
you're not.
The thing I just want to throw this out there. They do have 2 picks later on, which does.
They've got 19 picks in the first draft. In the first round,
19 of the 32.
They have 19 of the 32. All of the Raiders, but I guess they would want to go with that dynamic, player. That's what the Oakland Raiders are trying to get back to. The minute they went with Antonio Brown, Derek Carr, as excited as he probably was that Antonio Brown was coming, do you think maybe a little piece of him was thinking, crap, they're going to continue to try and go with this dynamic feel? Maybe it wasn't, but I would be worried in the back of my mind if you're the Oakland Raiders sitting there with the number 4 pick and knowing that you have another pick in the first round, that you have some
2 picks.
You have, well, I was not incorrect. You have at least another pick in the first round.
Yeah, 2.
But you have the freedom to go with a guy in the first 4 picks at number 4 that is a little bit more exciting, a little bit more fun, a little bit more dynamic. That would be a Kyler Murray. That would be a Dwayne Haskins, possibly. I don't know if Oakland will do that, but it would make sense in the way that they are moving with their team.
And just so everyone doesn't think that Brandon was serious, the Raiders don't have 19 picks. They have only 3 in the first round. They have 8 total picks of the 7.
The use of hyperbole.
Yeah, so they've got 3 firsts, a second, a 4th, a 5th, and then 2 7th-round picks to make their 8. For me, I just feel like the way I have it going, Kyler Murray to the Raiders, only because I don't have the Cardinals going with Kyler Murray at the top of the draft. Also, you look at it with those 2 other picks, if you're sitting there going, but Ricky, John Gruden said we really need a pass rush. We really need one. What's this draft deep in, Brandon? What side of the ball?
The defensive side.
Defensive side. So not only could a guy like maybe Brian Burns be available at that 24 and 27th pick, but also if you really like a guy, they could package 1 or 2 of those picks to move up in the first round to grab a pass rusher that they really like. So like the Raiders have some capital to move and maybe take a risk on a Kyler Murray because, hey, we've got those picks later on, or they could say, hey, we like Drew Lock. We're going to use our pass rusher here, and we're going to use these few picks here to trade up into the middle rounds maybe to get a Daniel Jones or a Drew Lock. I'm looking at Drew Lock if they do that because they worked him out. But yeah, I just asked you about the Raiders mainly because I'm going to say Kyler Murray. That's who I'm predicting him to go with. So are you saying Haskins is the one you're are you putting the Raiders as your prediction for Dwayne Haskins? Is that what you were saying? Or are you kind of uncommittal about that and just want to talk about Haskins?
I'm uncommittal. Okay. I'm uncommittal. Outside of number 1, I'm uncommittal. I don't have to make a mock draft, so I choose not to.
But hopefully you're going to be a part of our live mock draft, so you'll have some teams that you're drafting.
I do hope that I will be able to. My thought, I really enjoyed our conversation that we had. What was it? Was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where you had me thinking about a team moving up to number 3?
It was about Locke.
And Locke. And I wonder, and I'm playing around with that idea still in my mind, but I'm playing around more with, and I don't think that they would probably do it.
Can I guess? Is it the Dolphins?
No.
The Redskins?
The Redskins was the one. It was the team you had me thinking about last week. It's the Broncos. Okay. And the reason why I say that I don't know if they do it is because they have Joe Flacco. They have their placeholder for this year. But so do supposedly the Redskins, and so do supposedly the Dolphins. How committed are they on those placeholders? Because we all know they're placeholders.
Joe Flacco's got 3 years left on his deal.
Yeah, but until Joe Flacco.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, and that's the
Joe
difference.
Flacco got replaced by a guy who's a better runner than a passer. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Where I'm going to take a look. I know Case Keenum is done after this year, so the Redskins are in dire need afterwards. Yeah.
2 years for
2 years for Fitzy, 3 years for Flacco, 1 year for Keenum.
I really could see the Washington Redskins jumping up into the top part of that draft to grab a quarterback this year, because if they're in the same spot, if they're mediocre again next year, and they're in that spot again of 10 to 15, 12 to 15, they're not getting Tua. They're not getting Trevor Lawrence. They're not even in on the discussion with those guys. Why not try and go and get one of those solid quarterbacks that is there this year, and they're going to be available, especially when so many teams are looking defense. And Washington needs a makeover with everything, but why not go and get that quarterback right now? So when we were talking about that last week, you really had me thinking about it. Well, I've been thinking about it a little bit, and I think that makes sense.
And that's why I feel like I'm going to change my mind a little bit. Cardinals go at Nick Bosa. Niners stay put. They say, hey,
they don't go with anybody.
We could trade. They're like, we're going to go with Quinnen Williams. Like, that's who we're going to go with. We need a defensive guy. But then the Jets get there. I wonder if we see a similar trade to what we saw when the Bears took Mitch Trubisky, where the Raiders look at it and go, hey, John, you really like Kyler? Let's try to make a deal with the Jets. And I could see the Jets, even if the Raiders are like, well, the Jets aren't going to go quarterback, why would we trade with them? I could see the Jets trying to play the Raiders in the sense of, hey, we got other teams calling. We got the Giants, the Dolphins, the Redskins. They're on the line. Either you move up and trade with us, or Kyler Murray's not going to be here. And that's why I could see the Jets and Raiders possibly making a deal. The Jet pick, though, I do believe, on draft night is going to be traded. They will not be picking at number 3, because I feel like even if Kyler Murray goes 1, somebody's going to trade up for Locke or Haskins. And if Kyler Murray's there, if all the quarterbacks are there at 3, there's no way in hell the Jets are making that pick at 3. They would be stupid to make that pick at 3 because of the draft capital they could add for this draft and next year's draft as well, just based off how many quarterback-needy teams there are. So that's why with that pick, I don't know who's going to trade for it. Somebody's going to. Somebody is going to trade for that pick. But which prospect, because we're going to predict all of them, which prospect do you want to hit next for a prediction? Kind of thoughts of where they could go, and then a prediction, either Haskins or Locke. Do you want to go Haskins because we paired him and Murray together, or do you want to talk about Drew Lock?
Let's talk about Drew Lock.
What do you think about, like, where do you think, I know we talked about him last week. What are your thoughts on Drew Lock? Where could he be going? Yeah, the wild card, right?
So
you pick the Joker card.
Here's the thing. Here's another team though that jumps out of, is it time for us to get a makeover and do something different at quarterback? And that's the Cincinnati Bengals. And I understand they've got Andy Dalton, blah, 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 but how long are they going to continue to not win with Andy Dalton, especially in a division that, I don't want to say it's up for grabs, but I want to say it just became a whole lot more open in terms of, everyone now thinks the Browns are going to go out there for it and win it. People are no longer high on Pittsburgh. You've got the Baltimore Ravens that are there that have done some things here in the offseason. People think their defense, they've lost so much. The Cincinnati Bengals, how much longer are they going to continue to be blah? They've got a great running back in Joe Mixon. They've got a great wide receiver in A.J. Green. They've got a great wide receiver in Tyler Boyd. Is it time to go for that quarterback to actually get them over the hump, to make them a playoff team? The Cincinnati Bengals could surprise. I know in some mock drafts they've got Jonah Williams, the offensive tackle from Alabama, going to them. But could they surprise? Could they jump up, or even at 11, not even jump up, but at 11, take Drew Lock?
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals have been a weird one for me because I haven't bought it. Like, you're not the first one to throw it out there. There's a couple people that have had that thought of, like, is Andy Dalton the future in Cincy? I just haven't, like, there's been no teeth to that for me. It's like just biting with your gums. And I don't feel like the Bengals are going to make a move. I feel like if there's a prospect the Bengals should go with in the first round, it's Devin White, the linebacker out of LSU. Like, he's the guy that I really want the Bengals to go with. For me, Drew Lock is an interesting one because I think that for me, there's only two teams I see him going to, and that's either the Dolphins or the Redskins. And the reason why I'm going to say the Redskins is because, so he's meeting with the Giants. The Giants are a possibility. I already have a different quarterback that I'm going to predict that the Giants go with. Drew Lock, to me, I don't really, like, off the top of my head, I don't have a for sure team like, yes, that is where he is going to go. Because the Giants, they're going to go with a different guy. They're not going to go with the guy that many think. So I'll say this. They're not going to go with Dwayne Haskins. So where does that put Dwayne Haskins? Where does that put Drew Lock? And that's where I think we're going to see a little bit of a shuffle. Does a team like the Broncos get into the discussion? Does a team like the Dolphins move up? Does a team like the Redskins? And I honestly think that Drew Lock, I'm going to say the Redskins because he's going to meet with the Redskins. I feel like the Redskins are going to try to move up for a quarterback. If it's right, I will go Drew Lock goes to Washington, although I'm very unsure about where he goes because I feel he could be one that fluctuates depending on if a team wants to move up for him or kind of wait and see if he falls to them at 13. I actually want to jump to a guy. Because do you have anything else to say on Drew Lock? Are you locking in the Bengals for your prediction? Yeah, you don't know. You're like me. You're not. You're not locked in.
You know what? I'm gonna say no one's gonna. No one's gonna agree with me, but I'm gonna lock in the Bengals for fun. I'm gonna lock in the Bengals for fun for Drew Lock.
Kyler Murray, you've got Cardinals. I've got Raiders. Drew Lock, you've got Bengals. I've got Redskins. I want to skip Haskins. I want to push that can down the road for a bit. Daniel Jones. I'm going to shock you. You ready for it?
Sure.
He's going 17th overall to the Giants. The Giants are going to take a pass rusher at 6. They will take Daniel Jones at 17. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that the Giants, they've met with Haskins. Yeah, they're meeting with Locke. Depending on how those meetings go, I think the Giants, either one of two things happen. They take a Haskins or Locke at 6, or depending on if a team trades above them, whether if quarterbacks go like crazy before them, I really do think I'm starting to see, although Mark and I talked about it and I said I wouldn't go with that, after seeing the Giants and kind of looking what's going on draft-wise, I kind of have a feeling that the Giants will be that team to go, hey, you know what? Quarterback is a need of ours, but we've got several other needs. They need defensive line help. They need cornerback help. They need wide receiver. They need offensive line. They go with one of those at 6, and then at 17, try to get a Daniel Jones, and that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback that goes to the Giants. and he is the 17th overall pick, the one that they got from the Cleveland Browns.
And I'm going to say that Daniel Jones goes 32nd to the New England Patriots.
So you think he's going to go bottom of the first round?
He's going to go bottom of the first round. I don't see Daniel Jones as that. There's not one thing that you look at Daniel Jones and he goes, wow, he is just phenomenal at this. He is okay in all these things. Well, to me,
he's really good at short passes.
So is Eli Manning.
It's pushing the ball down the field that Daniel Jones has a little bit of accuracy issues.
I think he goes to the Patriots. He becomes Tom Brady's replacement, who retired today, by the way. April Fools. But he did. He came out. He got a Twitter. This was Tom Brady's first Twitter.
Did you seriously say that?
This is his first time on Twitter. He tweets and he says that basically along the lines of he's going to have all this free time on his hands now. He's just going to start tweeting. And then, of course, it was April Fool's, and he was joking. So, but he's
clever on social media, especially with his Instagram stuff.
That actually did happen. But I'm going to say Daniel Jones to the Patriots. If there's anyone who could work with him, it would be Bill Belichick and that squad. Daniel Jones in this whole group of quarterbacks is always underwhelming. He's never been someone I really wanted to talk about because he just wasn't exciting to me. As the other guys, I think they all bring something. They either have phenomenal, arm strength to really work it down the field, or great poise and athleticism and vision and accuracy and escapability and all this. Daniel Jones is to me, yes.
Yeah.
But that's why I think 32nd to the Patriots seems understandable.
Quick aside. What do you think is a better option? If you are Bill Belichick, what is the option you go with? You got to pick either or. You draft Daniel Jones at 32, you trade for Josh Rosen. Which one are you doing?
Well, since the Cardinals are going to be trading away Josh Rosen.
I'm just saying, which one would you rather do? Draft Jones or trade for Rosen?
You know what? I'm going to trade for Rosen because while I don't like him, I think that if there's anyone to save him, it would be Bill Belichick.
And that's why, for me, I'm gonna say it right now. I mean, I'm not gonna lock this in as a prediction, but Will Grier, if he did go to the Cardinals, I could see that being kind of. I don't know if that's Rosen's asking price, but because the Patriots and Cardinals are right there at 32, 33, I could see the Cardinals being like, hey, if we're giving you Rosen, let's just flip those picks just so we can draft Grier in that first round and get that fifth-year player option on him, kind of like how Baltimore wanted Lamar in that first round.
So you're saying
so they can get that option.
Where was Will Grier going, are you saying?
I'm saying if he went to the Cardinals, I threw out earlier. If
Kyler went to the Cardinals?
No. I'm saying, remember how I threw out earlier that if they really wanted a quarterback, they can go Nick Bosa at 1 and then take Will Grier with the first pick of the second round. Remember I threw that hypothetical out? I said if you're going to do that, what you could also do if you're the Cardinals is say to the Patriots, hey, we will trade you Josh Rosen, but we want to flip the 32 and the 33. So if they took a Will Grier at 32, then they're getting that fifth-year player option on Grier because they selected him in the first round, not the second round. Just wanted to throw that out there if that's a possible trade. So we've got Murray we locked down. We've locked down. Jones we've locked in. Yours might be easier than mine. Is Dwayne Haskins an easy lock for the Giants for you at 6?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Dwayne Haskins to the Giants.
Yeah, for me it's hard because I locked in Jones at 17 for the Giants. I don't know where Haskins then would go. Haskins and Locke are kind of then confusing to me because the Broncos could go quarterback, the Dolphins could go quarterback, the Redskins. Because I'm locking Drew in with Washington, because I have Jones going to the Giants, I'm going to say Dwayne Haskins goes to Miami, and Miami is actually going to trade up for him. Don't know who they're going to trade up with. I don't think he'll fall to 13. I think he gets traded. I think Miami is going to go with Dwayne Haskins. So, Murray, you've got Cardinals. I've got Raiders. Dwayne Haskins, you've got the Giants. I've got the Dolphins. Drew Lock, you've got the Bengals. I've got the Redskins. And then Daniel Jones, you've got the Patriots. I've got the Giants. Last but not least, the guy that I think is going in the second round, Will Grier. What do you think of him? where is he going?
So you already have him first pick, second round of the Cardinals?
No, I didn't lock that in. I was just, that's a hypothetical.
Not locking it in. It's not locked in. It's not locked in.
That is a hypothetical.
So I am going to go with Will Grier at, I'm not going to say at a spot, but I'm going to say that Will Grier is going to go to the Dolphins.
You think so?
I do.
Do they trade? I know you said not a spot, but would they have to trade up then? Because they're all the way at 48.
No, they probably they probably wouldn't have to. I think that the Dolphins will get him. I thought about the Redskins, but the Redskins just have the Redskins got no one to throw to. That's the big problem.
Yeah.
Is their best probably wide receiver went away, and where did he go? To the Jets. Why can't I think of his name right now? Small guy, speedster, slot guy.
I'll look it up. You go with
What
your
is his
thought.
name? Okay, so for the Dolphins though, they want to. The Dolphins want to play this whole
Crowder.
Yes, Jamison Crowder. Thank you. Yep, he went to the Jets. I think that with the Dolphins, they too are a little sore in terms of wide receivers and anyone who can catch the football, but they want to play this whole, we're waiting until next year. We're waiting until next year. I know they've got Ryan Fitzpatrick to try and bridge the gap. I don't think that they're going to be able to do that. I don't think they're going to wait, not bridge the gap, but I don't think that they're going to be able to wait. It goes back to the conversation we had a week ago when we talked about Fitzpatrick may actually give them too many wins to be in a really good spot to go after one of the top quarterbacks next year, and then it's one of those, are we giving away everything to get a number 1 or number 2 pick? And do we want to do that? Do we want to fleece ourselves to get that number 1 guy or number 2 guy, number 2 1 or 2 quarterback? I think that the Dolphins, they need somebody, they need their future this year, and they can do that by going and drafting Will Grier.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
Only because based off of where I've locked people in, I don't know where I want Will Grier to go. I'm going to ask you this question because this is a team I'm thinking about. How do you feel Will Grier fits with the offensive system? Of course, it's not going to be Vic that does the offense. It's going to be Scangarello, who does, I hope I said his last name right, Rich Scangarello, who does the offense for the Broncos. Could the Broncos be a good fit for Will Grier? Wouldn't have to start right away. They could let Joe Flacco be the guy while Will Grier kind of sits and learns and progresses. And could he be a guy that maybe takes 2 to 3 years, which fits the timeline because you could then give Joe Flacco the length of his contract to do what he's going to do.
Joe Flacco's not playing out that contract.
But
he's not.
It goes back to my original question. Is Will Grier the guy to fit the offense that Vic Fangio and company are going to be building with the Denver Broncos?
Well, they haven't told me yet, personally, what they're looking at for their offensive scheme. I have a feeling it's going to be based a lot on the run because right now that's their strong suit.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of young wide receivers that I think are going to be good and have shown some promise, but also last year it was a really hard year for Denver. Case Keenum could not get anyone the football. He struggled. He was not the same guy. And quarterback that you and your wonderful Vikings saw a year before that, that took them so close to the Super Bowl, that wasn't him. He was not the same guy last year, and it was really a shame because I was rooting for Case Keenum. But with Phillip Lindsay as the running back, a guy who I think can really carry the team for the Denver Broncos, did for anything that was good for Denver, it was probably Phillip Lindsay. Again, like I said, they've got some wide receiver, good, strong, I think, solid core of young wide receivers. Is it Deshaun Hamilton that's one of them? Cortland Sutton is another one. They've got some good guys there. And there's some guys who I think can get down the field. They've got Emmanuel Sanders as the veteran that's there leading the group. They need a guy who can get the ball down the field. Case Keenum struggled to be able to do that. A guy like Will Grier, He's got a strong arm. He did it all the time at West Virginia. Mm-hmm. He will be able to work the ball down the field. That is something I think that Denver will be looking at, a quarterback that can do that. Will Grier can. I know there's obviously a number of quarterbacks that people would say, well, they can all go down the field, except for Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
But I think that he would be a guy who could fit the system. But again, it's what's Denver looking for? Mm-hmm. They're going to be, I think, more of a run system. Mm-hmm. Heavier run. And that's certainly where their strength is right now. But we'll see. We'll see how long Joe Flacco is going to stay there. You said he's got 3 years left. I'm telling you, he's not playing out all 3 of those years.
I would be surprised if he got to the end of that contract as a starter of the Broncos.
He's not.
I'm going to say this. I've changed my mind while you were talking.
Okay.
And that's because either one of two things is going to happen. Either Will Grier, originally I was thinking top of the second round, he could possibly fall to like bottom second round. And there's 2 teams I'm thinking about now, Patriots and Saints. I think what's going to happen is I'm going to say the Patriots pick up Will Grier. If it's something crazy, they pick him up with the 32 pick to get that 50-year option on him. I don't think they do that because that's not a Bill Belichick thing. But they have 2 picks in the second round. They have the Bear pick at 56. They've got their own pick at 64. The Saints are right there at 62. So I think if he goes to the Patriots, it'll be with that Bear pick at 56. That's where I'm going to lock in Will Grier. So Will Grier will be a New England Patriot, and we'll see if he then becomes the heir apparent to Tom Brady, because so far every quarterback that the Patriots have drafted, Tom Brady has outlived them all, and kind of is like, ha ha ha, joke's on you, I'm still here. Any final thoughts you have on these quarterbacks? Which I'll tell you right now, if you're mad where we put these guys, we're not going to be right come draft time.
I was just going to say, we have actually no idea where these guys are going to go.
Watch, we don't. People are going to get mad at me because I'm going to do my mock draft and think something totally different and not have one of these quarterbacks in the spot I said tonight. So I'm prepared for that to happen as well. Because I've got this mock draft and my 7-round mock draft to do for the channel as well. So that should be fun. This is just like, these quarterbacks are all, it's going to be crazy to see where they go. Because even though it might not be as strong of a quarterback class that we thought we had last year, there are quarterback needy teams, and quarterbacks are like cream. The cream always, like Randy Savage said, "Oh, Mean Gene, the cream always rises to the top, Mean Gene." That's what happens with quarterbacks. When quarterbacks, we get to the draft, if there's enough of them, like dough, they're just going to rise to the top of the draft, and they usually go higher than they probably should in some situations. Any final thoughts on these quarterbacks before we move on?
No, but I can't believe that we are less than a month away now until the draft. It's very exciting.
As we're recording this April 1st, we are 25 days away from the NFL draft. This is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. Where do you see these quarterbacks going? How stupid are we? How do you disagree or agree with our placement of these quarterbacks? Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. But Brandon, let's go back to the NBA side of things, and we are taking a look at another 2 prospects, pitting them together, and kind of deciding maybe which one we would like. And this is a bunch of second-rounders, I'm going to say. Cassius Winston, Michigan State, they're going on to the Final Four after knocking off the Duke Blue Devils this past weekend. And then who should also be in the Final Four, as Virginia escaped their game. He put up 42 in a loss, the first overtime loss for Purdue all season, Carsen Edwards. So just like we did for the Culver Reddish, I completely blanked on the prospects we talked about earlier. We're going to do the same thing here. But before we get into that, make sure to rate and review the podcast on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Really means the world to us for that 5-star rating, and it helps us get into the ears of more people. But Brandon, let's start off whoever you would like to start with. Carsen Edwards, Cassius Winston. I'm going to let you take the floor. Who would you like to start talking about first for this kind of Winston versus Edwards segment?
Well, I'd love to start talking about the guy who I thought played the best in this tournament, and that's for Carsen Edwards.
Okay.
I mean, as we know, Matt has
exactly what Matt said.
Matt has come on a number of times, and he has said that. And I was texting with Matt in the first. Was it the first game? It was a game against Villanova where he scored 42 the first time, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this kid is crazy." And he said, "This is the Carsen Edwards that we can see, but that we don't see enough."
He said that on the podcast. It's which Carsen Edwards are we going to see? And we saw the 42-point Carsen Edwards in, 2 of the 4 games that they played? And the just phenomenal stat was he is the first player to have 4 25-point games in the tournament, 4 straight 25-point games in the tournament since Steph Curry did it in 2008.
I mean, you just look at this guy, and without his awesome three-point shooting, 9 of 16 against Villanova, not as good against Tennessee, went 5 of 14, and then 10 of 19 against Virginia. Purdue's not in these games. Because of Carsen Edwards, he put them either into the game or soared them way past their opponent. Also, his ability to drive to the hoop. How many times, Ricky, obviously his three-point shooting was phenomenal, but how many times have we seen Carsen Edwards just take it then coast to coast and just go all the way, drive all the way down the lane, know he's going to get hit, and roll it right in, count it in a foul, or even if it wasn't a foul, going the other way, 2 points for Purdue and getting back on defense. He's a phenomenal athlete, and he's a phenomenal player.
No, for me, the thing with Carsen Edwards, and I said this firmly, I got to look it up on Twitter and give credit to the person who tweeted at us, but we got a tweet about Carsen Edwards over the weekend. I say we because it was MVP also. Oh, it was Mike 2K. Mike 2K said, "How high did Carsen Edwards' stock rise for you guys tonight?" This was after the Virginia game on the 30th. "I understand he might be a tad too small, but man, can he put the ball in the bucket. He looks like a Shabazz Napier type of guy to make me, or a Trey Burke. Could be a 6-man. And my response was, I'd say he played himself into the second round this March. And then Mike 2K came back with, after tonight, I could see the Warriors or Rockets at the end of the first, honestly. But like my thought is, Carsen Edwards with this tournament solidified himself in my mind as a for sure second round pick. Like there might have been some people before March saying like, well, you know, Carsen Edwards could be a second round guy, but he's way too inconsistent. I don't know if I'd want my team spending a second round pick on him. But from what we have seen in March from Carsen Edwards, I think, and I'm going to put this, and Mike 2K is 100% correct with his 6-man comment, because the pro comp that I'm going to kind of work towards for this is kind of a Lou Williams. Lou Williams of the Clippers, where I know Lou Will has been in the league a lot and wasn't exactly what he was now coming out of college, but a smaller guy, Lou Will, 6'1", about 170, Carsen Edwards, 6 foot, 195, and that's what Lou Will is, a guy who comes off the bench for the Clippers, and he's got one goal: put the ball in the bucket. And he's had some phenomenal shots, some phenomenal buzzer beaters, and I could see Carsen Edwards being the same team for a team at his floor. His floor to me is Lou Will, a 6-man who can come off the bench, put the ball in the bucket, and give you points off of your bench, being that first guy off of it to relieve a starter.
And he just brings a lot of energy. He brings a lot of energy to the floor.
And he plays with passion.
Passion, and there's just an excitement around his game.
Plays with
That's
passion,
fun.
but he doesn't foul. He only averaged 2 fouls.
He's not out of
game.
control.
Exactly.
He's not out of control
like
passion.
The turnovers,
He's not Draymond Green, I'm mad at you, I'm kicking you in the balls now, getting teed up passion.
Exactly. Like, he's not going to be a guy that racks up assist numbers. He's not going to be a guy that rebounds the ball. He's going to be a guy that has one goal. I'm going to put the ball in the bucket, and that's why I think he'd be a quality six-man for a team at the next level, because he is a phenomenal scorer and has the shooting ability. Like that 10 of 19 from 3, I saw that and I was like, first off, I know the NBA 3 is deeper than the college 3.
He taking them deep.
Well, and my first thought was, is this what I can expect? I'm not expecting 10 of 19 every night, but is this the percentage I am looking at as over the year from Carsen Edwards, that 40 to 50, or am I going to see what he averaged per game this year, which was 35% from 3? Which average am I going to see from Carsen Edwards from 3? That's
maybe somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
maybe
like
somewhere in the middle.
If we're sitting around 38 to 40%, that would be a little bit better than the 35. Like he averaged about 3.8 made threes to an average of 10.6 taken threes. So he's taking them. He just wasn't making a ton of them.
I mean, you look at Carsen Edwards, and for the purpose of this comment, and Ryan Klein, and look at where they were taking some of those threes from. I mean, downtown. They weren't taking
James Brown.
Right, yes. They weren't taking them right there, right by the line. I mean, they're pulling up, step back, boom, knocking it right down. Defender in their face, and it's confidence. It's confidence for Carsen Edwards, too. He's a confident player. He plays, like you said, passion. He also plays with a chip on his shoulders and confidence. And that's what makes him so, I think, for Purdue, that's what made him so elite. That's what made him an elite player on that team, because he got hot. He was playing with passion, but he was playing with confidence. And he wasn't rattled. It was really, he was fun to watch in this tournament. He's been fun to watch for Purdue fans for as long as I can remember. You know, it seems like these last couple of years now, it's just been the Carsen Edwards show for the Purdue Boilermakers. And they're going to miss him for sure, because he's a special guy, a special talent. But that's what you're taking to the NBA. And I also don't believe that it's going to be one of those guys where, man, we heard so much about him in college. He, is setting all these records in the tournament. He gets to the NBA and fizzles out. I don't think that's going to be him. I think that you're right. He's someone who, coming off the bench, is going to provide a great spark for a team. And again, passion, confidence, and excitement.
What about Cassius Winston in your mind? Because to me, the thing that I wonder with Cassius is, so at the next level NBA, if you were going to be that Carsen Edwards type that I said, that 6-man scorer off the bench, that to me is like a perfect what you want as a 6-man, somebody who's going to be a scorer off the bench. Not saying Cassius can't score. He did average 18 a night in college this year, but he to me is more of a guy who, he's not going to go just get points for himself.
No.
He's going to distribute the ball as well. Could he be a guy that teams look at as a second-round prospect and say, hey, he's not going to be the type of scorer that maybe Carsen Edwards is. He's going to be a little bit more of a facilitator. Could teams still want that as a 6-man, second-round pick, even though he's more of a facilitator than just a pure scorer?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there was a reason why he was the Big Ten Player of the Year. It's because he does a whole lot, and it's not just scoring. Michigan State wouldn't be the team that they were without him feeding the ball to a number of their big men or their three-point shooters. It's his leadership, too. That's another thing that Cassius Winston brings to his team and to whatever he's doing. It's leadership. This guy, again, too, like Carsen Edwards, has confidence out there on the floor, and he has, I think, great court presence and great floor awareness, and he understands where guys are and where they're going to be. Backdoor cuts, working the ball into them, being able to be in sync with his players. That's why he's gotten so many assists. That's why he's been able to really run this Michigan State offense, and why you get a guy like him coming off the bench. He's going to be able to feed it into the guys who are going to be your primary scorers, but he also can score. He's a guy who's shown that he can score, and he can score from 3. He's got a good pull-up jumper mid-range. He's a fun guy to watch.
And the question, I'm just going to look it up really quick. Here's the question I want to ask you, though. and we're kind of jumping the gun with Cassius a little bit here. I think maybe Edwards too. Yeah, we're jumping the gun with these guys too. I want to ask you this question, starting with Winston, then you can ask the same thing, or answer the same thing with Edwards. Is there a chance that they stay? Because both of them, 3-year guys. Do they stay for their senior season?
So with Cassius Winston, if they win the national championship, he is not staying. Mm-hmm. If they don't win the national championship, he might be, talking to a former Michigan State teammate in Bridges and saying, "Hey, you stayed. How'd it work out?" Type of deal. Carsen Edwards, again, in talking with Matt, doesn't sound like he's going to be back.
This sounds like
this was it for Carsen Edwards. That he was going to be moving on.
Because also the thing you got to play into as well with these guys is, like, I bring up Daniel Gafford, I bring up Jonte Porter. Where last year, 2 guys, their draft stock was where it was, and they said, I'm going to come back because maybe I can inch myself up a little bit. I can improve that stock. For either of these guys, Winston, I see as a guy that if he comes back, could possibly up his stock a little bit. And by up his stock, I mean could play himself into, because right now, if you look at Tankathon and you look at the point guards for their big board, you've got the guys in the first round, like John Morant, Darius Garland, Kobe White, Trey Jones, Shamori Pons, and then Ty Jerome is right there at the end. But then the second round guys, Marcus Howard, Carsen Edwards. They don't even have Cassius Winston listed for their top full 2 rounds of a big board. That to me is why with Cassius, I wouldn't be surprised even if they won the national. Like, if he wins the national championship, I agree with you. I could see him leaving because it's like, well, what else do I have? Like, what else do I have to do in college? Like, I've hit the pinnacle and I've won the national championship, unless he wants to try to win 2 in a row, which is really hard to do. But I feel like Cassius could be a guy where, hey, if I stay, let's say they don't win the national championship, I'm going to stay. I can up my draft stock a little bit because I know each draft class is different. Don't know what point guards he's going to have to go up against later on, but like there won't be a Marcus Howard. There won't be a Carsen Edwards. There won't be a Shamori Pons at that point in the draft. There won't be a Ty Jerome because these guys go on to the NBA, that he might be able to play his draft stock up to where he is a for sure second round pick next year. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Where Carsen Edwards, it kind of seems like, in my mind, I'll ask you, that his stock is pretty much solidified.
His
stock, is the
highest. Carsen Edwards, his stock is at the highest that it possibly could be.
Like, he couldn't come back, and if he was more consistent, wouldn't be higher.
The only way that would happen with Carsen Edwards in my mind is that he comes back and he takes a step back.
And then people go, "Ooh, good thing he didn't come out because we were going to draft him."
I'm not saying that he would, but he's at the peak right now.
There's more to hurt than
people are talking about him. Yep. People are thinking, "Oh, could he be rising? Could he be rising in these drafts?"
Well, it's like, look at Mike 2K. He said end of the first round. That he was thinking that he wouldn't be surprised if a team at the end of the first round took Carsen Edwards. That's kind of where the hype is right now with him.
Absolutely. So I think that Cassius Winston has more of an opportunity. Again, in my mind, if they win the national championship, he's saying, "This was great. Coach Izzo, this was outstanding. I loved it. I did what I was part of a team that accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. I'm heading out." But if they don't, if they get so close and they lose to Texas Tech or they lose to Virginia,
which is going to be a tough opponent,
or to Auburn, I think that he's saying, I was this close. I got one more year left. We can do this.
Yeah.
I'm coming back one more year, and I'm going to try and see if I can raise up my stock a little bit more from what I did this year. That's just my thought. That's my initial thought.
I want to tag one conversation at the end of this one. Because I know I told you I didn't ask you this in the Culver Reddish, because Reddish is his teammate. But I'm going to kind of tag this in at the end to the Winston Edwards discussion, because we're talking about staying or leaving. In your mind, what is Tre Jones going to do? Is he going to be at Duke next year, or is he going to go to the NBA draft?
I think he's going to be at Duke.
Okay.
I think he's going to be at Duke. He was so heartbroken.
Just bent over
in that game on Sunday.
The towel.
He was so heartbroken. And honestly, I understand that they talked with RJ and Cam, after the game, and I think Zion. I didn't see that one, but I saw. I think it was RJ and Cam they're talking there. They're upset. They're bummed. They're going to the NBA.
Yeah.
Tre Jones, though. I think he's going to have a more illustrious college career than he's going to see in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And I think that he wants to keep that alive. If he can, I think he'll be back.
Well, the thing I'm going to look up really quick is, give me a second. Forgot to put in college for there because he's an NBA player now. But I would almost look at his brother, Tyus Jones, because Tyus was a guy where only 1 year at Duke, that was a Duke team. Let me see who exactly was on that roster. So, yeah, that was the Jahlil Okafor. So, like Jahlil Okafor, Justin Winslow, Grayson Allen. That was Allen's freshman year when he had that amazing championship game. And it was kind of like, here I am to play for Duke. And that's where Grayson Allen became a household name. Marshall Plumlee was on that team. Semi Ojelie, I think that's how you say it, was on that team. NBA guys now. At this point, Quinn Cook as well was the older guy on that team. I kind of almost wonder if Tre is going to talk to his brother Tyus a little bit, because Tyus is a guy that left. He got drafted at the end of the first round, 24th pick. Hey, guess what? If I look at Tankathon, where's Tre Jones going right now? 23rd in their mock draft. In ours, I had him as high as maybe 17 to the Boston Celtics. But I wonder if he's going to talk to his brother Tyus and say, hey, what do you think? What happened to you? Like, you came out after 1 year at Duke after being the guy. Like, he wasn't the number one guy. It was Jahlil Okafor was the number one. Justice Winslow was the second scorer. And then Grayson Allen had the championship game that took him by storm. But I'll say the 4 years that Tyus has been in the NBA hasn't been a phenomenal NBA career. Like, the most points he scored was this season. He's had 6 points per game.
You mean Tre?
This year? No, Tyus. I'm talking his NBA stats.
Tyus. I'm losing you.
Yeah, so Tyus in the NBA has not had a lustrous so far NBA career. Yes, he's in Minnesota. I understand that. But, like, I wonder if Tre asked Tyus, and maybe that plays into it, where maybe Tyus goes, hey, you know what? If your heart's set on going back to Duke, you can go back to Duke. Like, there is nothing wrong with going back.
So here's also my question, though. Mm-hmm. You're one of my my NBA guys.
Yeah.
How successful is Tre Jones going to be able to be at the next level?
Depends on where he goes. That's the question.
Hold on, though.
Yeah.
When he can't score the basketball efficiently. And now I understand that he did have a good game. He had that one game. He didn't have that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. He had that one game.
But Cam wasn't playing that game. I believe that was the game Cam was not playing.
But look at so many of the games.
Yeah,
again, I know it's a taste of the tournament, but that's when everyone's watching.
Yeah, you're talking the VT game.
Yes, he had a really good game that game. Mm-hmm. He was outstanding.
But the first time they played VT, only had 9 points.
But it's what's his impact going to be at the next level? Good defender, lockdown defender, really good, not as good as a Cassius Winston, but really good at being able to move an offense and work an offense. And the offense for Duke has flowed through him. I know people can say it's flowed through Zion and RJ, but it's flowed through Tre Jones. How good is he going to be at the next level? for the NBA.
So I'm watching a video here it's ESPN on Trey Jones' stat page, and they're doing an interview after the game, and RJ Barrett he doesn't have to, but honestly he does, because that's what you do to your buddies, is he's got to put his arm around Trey and console him, because Trey is so distraught after losing that Michigan State game that it kind of just breaks your heart to see him like that. But that's an interesting thing that I thought about when I saw Trey Jones break down like that. I was like, a couple years ago, Adam Morrison does almost the same thing, and we're making fun of him for it. Years later, Trey Jones does it, and Trey Jones isn't the only one. It's just for that Duke game he was. And nowadays, it's like, oh, look at that guy, he's showing emotion. Where when Adam Morrison did it, it was like, oh, look at this crybaby, he lost the game, men don't cry. Just kind of made me think of how our society and culture has changed, especially with the tournament and losing games and showing emotion. I think the best decisions for Trey would be to go back. I don't think he has to come out, because, like you mentioned with the NBA side, it all depends on where he fits. If he's going to for sure go to Boston, then sure, come out. That'd be a great fit for Trey Jones. But if you're going to go, let's say, to Brooklyn, let's say to Detroit, like, you know what? Maybe I'll come back. Like, if you're going to go to Cleveland, maybe I'll come back and go and try to work on some stuff. Because, like, for me, the glaring thing that comes out to me is his 3-point percentage of what he hit. Not even averaged one a game when shooting 3 a game, hit 26%. So for me, I would say Trey Jones should come back. Cassius will come back, because I don't think they're going to win the national title. And then Carsen Edwards moves on. Any final thoughts about anything we talked about? I know I threw the Trey Jones at you last second, but anything with Cassius, Carsen, or Trey to end the podcast?
No.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. Also, make sure to hit us up on Patreon, patreon.com/MostValuedPodcast. We got new rewards for you guys, and they are great. So go ahead and check those out. Make sure to also rate and review the podcast on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Every 5-star rating really helps us out and gets us into more ear holes of people that like college sports and college basketball and football. But thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. And as always, have a good day, everybody.